Hello, welcome to Prajim Technologies. I am Venkat. This is part 49, Access Modifiers. In this session, we'll talk about different access modifiers that can be applied for type members. For types themselves, you can only apply two different access modifiers, which we will be talking about in a later session. In this session, we'll also talk about private, public, and protected members in a great detail. And in the next session, we'll be talking about the other two access modifiers, internal and protected internal. And to understand this session properly, it's better if you have a good understanding of the difference between types and type members. Alright, in C#, there are actually 5 different access modifiers: private, protected, internal, protected internal, and public. In this session, as I told you, we'll be talking about the first 3. Actually, private, protected, and public. In the next session, we'll talk about internal and protected internal. Okay, so private members are available only within the containing type, whereas public members are available anywhere and there is no restriction on public members. So let's see what do we mean by this, and it's very simple to understand. Okay, let's have a customer class. So public class customer, and this class is going to have a private integer field. So private int underscore id is my private field, and I'm going to create a public property. So public int id, and to expose that property, we can use a get and a set accessor. So return underscore id, and we will set underscore id to the value. And by the way, if you don't know what properties are, we have a video recorded on properties. Please check that video. All right, now if you look at this customer class, it's pretty simple. We have got one private field underscore id and one public field id. Okay, now since this field is private, this is available only within the containing type. So what's the containing type for this file? This class customer. Okay, so this field is available only within this customer class. Look at this, I'm able to access this here. I'm able to return that, and I'm able to set a value for that. Okay, but only within this type. If I try to access this field outside of this class, I will get a compiler error. Let's see now how we do that. Now, outside of this class, so in the main class, I have another class here. So in the main class, I have a main method. And in this main method, I am creating an instance of this customer class. So customer C1 is equal to new customer. And now, since this field is an instance field, again, we have a video recorded on the difference between static and instance field. If you're not sure what do we mean by static and instance fields, please check that video series. So since this ID is an instance field, you can access that on the instance of the class. So I'm creating this customer class instance C1, and if I try to access C1 dot, look at this. Do I see the underscore ID in the IntelliSense? I don't. Okay, so this is actually a hint to you. You're not allowed to access that. But if I try to access that by just typing the name, okay, maybe I'm trying to print that, let's say. You can see a red squiggly already there. It says customer dot underscore ID is inaccessible due to its protection level. So because of the access modifier you have there, it's inaccessible. Okay, it's private, so that field is available only within that customer class. Outside of the customer class, it's not available, so that's private. If you try to access that, you will get a compiler error, inaccessible due to its protection level. On the other hand, this ID field property is actually public. So public, it is accessible anywhere. No restrictions whatsoever within the class, outside of the class, even in a different assembly. We'll talk about different accessing members from different assemblies in a later session, but public member is basically available anywhere. There is no restriction whatsoever. So if I try to print, when I say c.id, look at that. I am able to access that. And if I try to build this, I will get no compiler errors. So on the status bar, if you look at that, build succeeded. So very simple and straight. If you look at the slide here, private members only within the containing class. What is the accessibility? Only within the containing class. Whereas public member, anywhere, no restrictions. So if you look at this 5 different access modifiers, private members will have least restriction, I mean highest restriction. It's only available within the class, containing class, whereas public, there is no restrictions. So these two are the two extreme ends, and protected internal falls in between them, which we'll be talking about now in a bit. All right, so public, anywhere, no restrictions. Now let's go ahead and look at protected access modifier. What do we mean by protected access modifier, and what access level does it have? And to understand that, let's create a simple class. Okay, we already have this customer class, and if you look at this customer class, what we will do is we will create a protected, maybe protected int, and I'm saying ID. Okay, so within this class, this ID field is protected. So if a field, I mean, if a member is protected, then that member is available within the containing class and to any class that derives from the containing class. Okay, now if you look at this, is main class deriving from the containing class? No. So obviously this ID will not be available here. Look at that, you already have a red squiggly. Customer.id is inaccessible due to its protection level. But on the other hand, let's create another class. So public, basically my customers are of two types, maybe corporate customers and retail customers. So customer is the base class for every type of customer in my business. Okay, so I'm going to have another customer called, let's say, corporate customer, and this class is going to inherit from the customer class. Okay, now corporate customer inheriting from customer class, and we know that a protected member is available, protected members are available within the containing type or class and to the types or classes that derive from the containing type. Okay, so since our corporate customer class is deriving from the customer class, you can access this protected member. But on the other hand, your main class is not deriving from your customer class, so you have that red squiggly there, a compiler error showing ID is inaccessible due to its protection level. Okay, now let's say I'm going to have a method here, maybe public void print ID. And now let's create a corporate customer object. So corporate customer CC is equal to new corporate customer. Since this field is an instance field, we need to create an instance of the derived class object, and then CC dot, look at this, ID. I'm able to access that. Okay, and maybe I can set it a value of 101 if I wish to. Okay, so protected members are available within the containing class and to the classes that derive from the containing class. If a class doesn't derive from the containing class, then that protected member will not be available to that class. That's why your main class is not able to access that ID. And by the way, to access protected members, to access the base class protected members in the derived class, you can either use the derived class object. Here corporate customer class is deriving from the customer class, so we create an instance of that class, and on that instance we are invoking that field. Okay, now instead of doing this, what you can also do is you can basically use base keyword. Base dot, look at this ID. Base in the derived class method actually refers to base class instance, so that's why you are able to access that property, base.id. Or simply you can use this keyword as well. This dot id will also give access to it. Okay, so basically if you want to access base class protected members in the derived class, you can either use the derived class object, or you can use the this keyword, or you can use the base keyword. But if you try to do any of that in a class that doesn't inherit from the base customer class, here in this example, you get accessibility error. Okay, so here you can't even say base dot. You cannot use any, you cannot basically invoke the ID here, because why? There is no base class for this. This class is a standalone class. It's not inheriting from any of the base class. Okay, so that's about protected. So if you look at protected members, they're available within the containing type and to the types that derive from the containing type. And in the next session, we'll be talking about internal and protected internal. On this slide, you can find resources for ASP.NET and C# interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a